This week, join me on a search for one of the great mysteries of archaeology, the lost cities of the Amazon. 500 years ago, Spanish conquistadors first came here in pursuit of gold. They found no treasure, but they did bring back stories of amazing cities thriving in the jungle. Their tales triggered centuries of exploration, all of it in vain. But now, thanks to some revolutionary new discoveries, we just may be able to find those lost cities. Join me as I follow in the footsteps of explorers past and present. Venture deep into remote jungles to meet a little-known indigenous tribe.
They'd boil the flesh off the body?
And find evidence of ancient cities hidden in the Amazon. We're digging for the truth, and we're going to extremes to do it.
Amazon, here we come!
The Amazon is the largest river in the world, a vast system of interconnected waterways as big as all of Europe. Covered by impenetrable jungle and home to savage beasts, it was for centuries known to explorers as the Green Hell. Some sought the gold of hidden cities. Others were convinced that if they searched hard enough, traveled far enough, they'd discover the urban remains of ancient civilizations. Hi, I'm Josh Bernstein. I've come here to Brazil to explore one of archaeology's great mysteries, the lost cities of the Amazon. The first Europeans entered the Amazon basin in the middle of the 16th century. They were Spanish conquistadors under the command of Francisco de Orellana, and they traveled inland from the Pacific Ocean in search of El Dorado, the legendary city of gold. They didn't find El Dorado, but Orellana's chronicler did report seeing large populations along the river's edge.
We tarried in the land, densely populated with towns and villages. Some of the towns extended for 5 leagues without any separation between the houses. Quite a wonderful thing to see.
It was a discovery that later adventurers were never able to confirm. In fact, all subsequent expeditions reported that only the most primitive of tribal peoples called the Amazon home. But one man remained convinced that the lost cities could be found. Lieutenant Colonel Percy Fawcett. A prominent member of the Royal Geographic Society, his many exploits were followed avidly by newspaper readers all around the world. Fawcett, a real-life Indiana Jones, spent 30 years searching for the ruins of ancient cities in the Amazon. His inspiration? The accounts of Orellana and other Spanish explorers. Their stories were his life's obsession. They would also take him to his grave. His quest began in 1906. Hired to explore and map the uncharted reaches of the Amazon, he was one of the few Europeans willing to risk deadly encounters with the natives and the wild animals of the jungle.
I have traveled much in places not familiar to other explorers, and the wild Indians have again and again told me of the buildings, the character of the people, and the strange things beyond. The existence of the old cities I do not for a moment doubt.
Fawcett mysteriously disappeared in 1925. This tribe, the Kwikuru, are the descendants of the last people to see him alive. Even today, they still talk about the man they call the Colonel. But the first real clue to suggest Fawcett's quest wasn't in vain was discovered almost 1,000 miles from here. This is the Brazilian city of Belém. It's located where the Amazon meets the Atlantic. In the 19th century, some unusual artifacts began to show up in the markets here, and they created quite the sensation. They came from a nearby island called Marajó. They were fascinating because the sophistication of these artifacts proved that an advanced and complex society was living here in Amazonia. If there was a complex society, could there have been cities too? To find out, I'm going to Marajó Island. It's just across from Belém, in the mouth of the Amazon itself. Much of Marajó is covered in water for almost 10 months a year, and there are no roads. This is one of the few times it's accessible. The only way in is by plane. I'm meeting Denise Shan, a visiting scholar at the Emilio Geldi Museum. She's taking me to one of the sites where she's found these mysterious artifacts, buried in huge mounds built up from the flat island.
It wasn't like you were the archaeologist.
Radiocarbon dating indicates these sites are 1,500 years old.
Look, here it is.
So this whole mound here, everything here, was man-made.
Right.
It looks like a small hill in the midst of thick vegetation.
How big is this mound?
Used to be 7 acres.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, and 36 feet high.
The mounds kept people above the seasonal flooding,
Included.
but they offered more than just protection.
Dug out.
They were also burial grounds. Each generation built on top of the previous one, so the mounds are full of funerary urns and the ceramics that went with them.
Wow. Look at all this pottery, though.
Yeah.
It's truly everywhere. It's like, is it okay if I pull some of these out?
Yeah,
This
right,
site's been
yeah.
fully. And check this out. It's you know, all these pieces that I'm pulling are pot shards just sticking out of the walls.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you know, no offense, but the mound. You know, it's hard for me to make out that there were tons of people here, but
Right,
this is
yeah.
obvious a sign that there were people living here.
This whole area was like 2,000, 3,000 people. Look.
The original mound builders vanished long ago, but the pottery they left behind has changed how archaeologists think about life in the Amazon before the Europeans arrived. When we return to Denise's office in Belém, it really becomes clear. These potsherds, when put together, indicate a settled society in the Amazon.
They're huge. How would they be used?
Well, for what we called secondary burial. First, they either boiled off the flesh or let it body rotten somewhere.
They'd boil the flesh off the body?
Yeah, that's
Really?
one possibility. You see, and then sometimes they paint the bones red. Look at the skull.
So a person would die, they'd boil their bones and skull down to just this, paint it red, and put it in an urn.
Yeah, they arrange in a certain way inside of the urn and put offerings also together. These kind of pots we found inside the urns. Look.
What are those triangle
Oh.
things?
These are tangas. It's like the bottom part of a bikini.
Bikini?
Yeah.
Really? So they would wear like that? With a string around,
right,
huh?
Yeah.
Wow, Brazilians with your beach wear, sexy beach wear, gotcha.
They were buried with objects from all aspects of their lives, personal, practical, even ceremonial, including a phallic rattle.
That's fairly suggestive. What was this?
Well, yeah, it was used in some kind of ritual.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Everywhere. Yeah, right.
These funerary urns are vital clues,
Have some meaning.
changing the stereotypes of how people in the Amazon used to live.
Well, they were buried inside houses, and they kept this part on top of the ground.
So this much is still sticking up.
Yeah.
The fact that they're actually burying their ancestors in their homes, doesn't that suggest a permanence that sort of flies in the face of these nomadic cultures?
It was some kind of, claim to the place where they lived, their territory, to say, well, we are the people who live in this place. The problem is that some people thought that this kind of society could never evolve in the Amazon. But we know today that this society evolved in Marajo Island, and they lived there for 900 years.
The society living on Marajo Island was clearly well established. Their funerary practices and their settlements suggest sophistication. But perhaps they weren't the only culture in this region to demonstrate complexity. Could other people farther upriver have created similar settlements? Could Oriana and explorers like him have actually found cities in the Amazon?
I'm pursuing a mystery that's intrigued explorers for generations. Are there ancient lost cities hiding deep within the Amazon?
All these pieces that I'm pulling are potsherds.
I've discovered that large, settled communities used to exist at the mouth of the Great River. But could there be lost cities hidden in the interior? I need to head 1,000 miles upriver to find out more. My destination is Manaus, in the heart of the Brazilian rainforest. It's near here that new excavations have inspired archaeologists to rethink the possibility of lost cities in the Amazon. Manaus is the main port of the Amazon basin, bustling with activity, a market for goods from throughout the region. From here, I'm heading upriver with Elena Lima, a researcher at the University of Sao Paulo.
And the rhythm of their lives.
Soon after leaving Manaus, I noticed that the banks are almost completely deserted. There are no visible settlements. Until recently, most archaeologists believed the accepted wisdom that the Amazon was a wet desert, far too infertile to support a large, settled population.
We're crossing to the other kilometers.
But Elena tells me this is where the Spanish explorer Orellana reported seeing thousands of houses lining the river.
So all along the coast here, there would have been, what, like one village after another?
Yes.
How heavily populated was it?
The chronicles from the 16th century tells the villages were one right next to each other.
It's beautiful. It looks like beachfront property.
After an hour and a half, we arrive at a site called Asatuba.
Nice.
Good.
All right.
So here we are to Asatuba site.
The Asatuba site looks, at first glance, to be little more than a patch of earth with some trees growing on it.
Yes, this is the archaeological site.
What is it that makes this an archaeological site?
The main thing, the most important thing is this soil. Look at this. This is the terra preta de índio.
What is it? Teja?
Terra preta de índio, Indian black earth. It's a very fertile soil, and it's directly connected to the archaeological site.
So how does this soil become black then?
Actually, it was created, made during the process of occupation of this area. It's connected to all the sherds. Look at this. They're all around.
Oh.
Here, see?
Yeah.
Here's a nice one.
Wow.
The pottery and the terras pretas, they are both a product of human occupation.
Wow.
Elena tells me Terra Preta is a genuine archaeological mystery. Highly fertile, this black earth was once presumed to be a natural phenomenon. But now it's believed to be the product of deliberate soil management. Still, despite more than a century of study, the exact formula for making it continues to elude scientists even today.
Most people used to think Amazonian soils wouldn't support these plants.
So maybe the way that people thought that you couldn't actually support a society, grow
Yeah.
crops here.
Yeah.
But I guess
And
you
these
can, yeah.
these black earth showed people knew how to deal with this.
Indigenous tribes in the present-day Amazon typically do what's called slash-and-burn agriculture. The jungle is cleared by fire and planted with manioc cuttings. Each field is farmed for a few years and then abandoned for another. For most of the 20th century, archaeologists were sure that this was the way the Amazon had always been farmed, and slash-and-burn agriculture could never support large, concentrated populations. Cities in the Amazon were thought to be impossible. But cultivation with terra preta is much more productive than slash-and-burn methods. The proof is growing all around us. Maybe Orellana was telling the truth about the cities.
We are 2.5 kilometers far from the other spot, and this is still the same site and the same terra preta extension.
stretches all this way.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Okay.
Want to show you this? These were found when they cut the road. These are funerary urns.
Oh.
You see one over here and the other one here.
Still in the ground from below.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And this here is terra preta again.
Yes, yes. Can you see the contact between the terra preta and the yellow soil?
There must be
where
like 3 feet of that up there.
Yeah, it's a thick layer.
And you said that this is what, 2.5 kilometers from where we just were?
Yeah,
And it's terra preta the whole
it's
way?
a huge extension, yeah.
Wow. Elena, given how important terra preta was, and still is today, are people still making it?
No, we don't know how to make it anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
So what happened to the people who knew how to make it?
When the first Europeans came, they tell us about large abandoned villages. So all these people were dying of diseases, were running away to upriver, mainly upriver, and all this structure, the social structure, collapsed.
So the ability to make terra preta, I guess like this art of creating the soil, was lost with the people who died.
Yes.
This fertile black earth, with its rich carbon content, remains almost as much of a mystery today as when it was first discovered.
Yeah, right here.
As for Percy Fawcett, he knew nothing about terra preta, but he knew a lot about the potsherds that went with it. He found them everywhere as he mapped the Amazon. Using an altimeter and the simplest of surveying equipment, he explored the vast and mostly uncharted Amazon basin. But Fawcett had more than maps on his mind. He believed there were stone cities hidden in the jungle, cities like those then being uncovered in the jungles of Central America and Peru. One day, while combing through archives in Rio de Janeiro, he found a document written in 1743. It described a ruined city full of palaces and public plazas deep within the rainforest. Now, Fawcett was convinced. The city was so real to him that his son Jack was able to draw a picture of it from his description. Fawcett called the city Z, and he thought he knew where it was, but he kept the exact location a secret. He would be the first to find it, or die trying. It's a wonderful, romantic vision, but it's hard to match Fawcett's imagined city with what I've seen at Asatuba.
So what does Asatuba tell us about primitive life here?
It was more densely occupied in the past than it is today.
And given that you said that this riverbank was wall-to-wall villages, basically back-to-back throughout, is there any way to know how many people were in this region?
I wouldn't run the risk of saying numbers, but surely a lot of people.
It seems Oriana was telling the truth. There really were large villages along the banks of the Amazon. But it's going to take more than rich soil and sophisticated pottery to convince me that these were the kinds of stone cities that Fawcett was looking for deep in the interior of the Amazon. I'm following the route of adventurer Colonel Percy Fawcett to learn what happened to him, and to try and find what he called the lost city of Z. For years, archaeologists doubted the stories of lost cities in the Amazon, but I've seen some compelling evidence that they may actually exist. I'm flying over 1,000 miles, from Manaus to Canarana, deep in the heart of Brazil. Here, I pick up Mike Heckenberger, an archaeologist at the University of Florida. We're heading into the vast, wild region of the Upper Xingu River.
Away we go. And here we go.
It's the largest tract of tropical forest in South America, still under indigenous control.
Nice. Panorama. Very smooth. Yeah.
We're going in for 4 days. We'll be away from electricity and phones. There is a shortwave radio, but I'm told it's unreliable. In 1925, Percy Fawcett headed into this same region. He was looking for the lost city of Z. He had tried once before and failed. Now, he was 58, and he knew that this was his last chance.
If the journey is not successful, my work in South America ends in failure, for I can never do any more.
With Fawcett was his son, Jack, and Jack's best friend, Wally Rimmel, who thought this trek would be a great segue to becoming a Hollywood movie star. They set out with mules and 2 guides. Mike and I fly over the same territory that Fawcett's small expedition crossed.
Fawcett would have loved one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Fawcett would have had a much easier go of it.
It'll take us only a few hours to fly over land that Fawcett struggled to cross in 8 days. In 1925, the scrub brush hadn't been cleared. and the jungle was almost impenetrable.
Our journey has been no bed of roses. We have cut our way through miles of low, dry scrub. We have been eaten by bugs. Raleigh Rimmel is still bootless from his lame foot, the result of an infected insect bite. I have therefore urged him to go back, but he insists on going on.
Fawcett's route started in Cuyaba, heading north into unknown territory around the Xingu River. And that's exactly where we're heading.
We've now come into kind of the edge of the indigenous area, and you can see it's just solid forest. As far as the eye can see, it's just contiguous forest.
It'll be nice to see friends again.
It'll be wonderful to see friends again, yeah. The Kwikudu are extremely friendly people, and yeah, very dear to my heart.
We approach the village of Kwikuru, where Mike has been studying their lifestyle today and the archaeology of 500 years ago.
So that's it?
That's it. That's the Kwikudu village.
This is great. The village is coming out to meet us. Look at the kids running. Hello.
Mike has been living and working with the Kwikuru people for over 12 years.
Okay, bon dia.
He is the adopted brother of the main chief. No one knows the Kwikuru better, and Mike thinks that they have a lot to tell us about the possibility of cities in the Amazon basin.
Hi, bon dia. It's like a homecoming. I feel welcome. This is their central plaza, huh?
This is the Central Plaza, yeah.
They seem very happy to see you.
Yeah, this is Itzana.
How are you?
Joshua.
Nice to meet you. Bon dia.
The Kwikuru still live very much as they did before Europeans came to the New World. Isolated by choice, they're self-sufficient, living on what they harvest and what they hunt. The Kwikuru are like a window into the past, with a few notable exceptions. But will these 300 friendly, welcoming people and their friend Mike Heckenberger be able to help me find evidence of ancient cities in this wilderness? I meet Afukaka Kwikuru, the chief of the village.
Okay. Should we sit? Wow, this is great.
He and Mike have been working together to discover more about the history of the Kwikuru and what it can teach us about the Amazonian past. Afukaka tells me his people have maintained the same traditions and cultural practices for hundreds of years. Next, Mike gives me a tour of the village.
Wow, that is gorgeous. Look at the parrot on top.
Yeah, aren't these beautiful?
Yeah. What are these called?
These are called une. It's the traditional house.
How many people fit inside one house?
15 to 20 on average. And the position on the plaza, whether it's on the north side or the south side, east or west, depends on the position of the person. The chiefs live on the north and south poles of the village, for instance.
Okay, so actually where you are relative to this is important.
Is very important, right?
What about the size of the plaza itself?
It's about 700, 750 feet wide. Usually they're about 500 feet wide.
And traditionally, this is the setup that we would have seen here 500 years ago.
But yeah, this is what it was probably 500 years ago.
Mike explains that this central plaza, bigger than 2 football fields, is surrounded by permanent dwellings that are perfectly adapted to the hot climate.
Josh, I wanted to tell you a little bit about these sculptures. This is a jaguar and this is a toad. And these sculptures are only made in chiefs' houses, which they call...
Back in Afukaka's house, there's more evidence that the Kwikuru differ from the usual concept of nomadic hunter-gatherers in the Amazon.
To chiefs. All of these different emblems and designs are specific to chiefs' houses.
And what's this thing?
This is a manioc flour storage silo. The community gives surplus manioc flour to the chief, who stores them in this traditional silo. You can see that this is made out of reeds and leaves, just as it would have been in the past.
And how much manioc would they store here?
We've estimated that they can store up to 2,000, 2,500 kilograms, the equivalent of several tons of manioc flour. The basic elements of a complex society are things like the presence of a political elite, a group of people that is fundamentally different, a class-like group of people. And here we have evidence that there was a chiefly elite. We have evidence of large-scale food production. We have evidence of storage.
And his stuff doesn't spoil.
Nope, keeps good for a full year.
The village of Kwikuru has been here for only 30 years, but it feels permanent. The size of the structures and their capacity to store large food resources hint at even bigger populations in the past. Could they have been cities? I imagine Colonel Percy Fawcett passing through this very region. Did he stop here? Are we near the remains of his lost city of Z? I've traveled thousands of miles, crisscrossing the Amazon region in pursuit of lost cities in the jungle. I've seen compelling evidence that large-scale societies did exist deep within the rainforest. Now, following in the path of explorer Colonel Percy Fawcett, my quest has brought me to the remote village of Kwikuru. It's another reality, a world of its own. Archaeologist Mike Heckenberger wants to give me a greater sense of the history and complexity of Kwikuru society by taking me fishing.
Pretty much all of the terrestrial red meat is tabooed, and they won't eat it.
So the majority of their diet, by far, is fish.
Yeah, the vast majority of animal protein is fish. They also eat, during certain times of the year, grasshoppers.
Yeah, no, actually, I like the taste of grasshoppers.
It's a long walk that starts out dry, then gets wetter and wetter.
Be careful, it's slippery.
Typically,
the Kwikuru are sophisticated fishermen who harvest the waters around them in a variety of ways.
So we're hoping for fish, huh? Oh, and I think we got some.
At this time of year, the most effective form of fishing is with traps.
A lot of fish. All right, look at that.
Small dams called weirs create ponds that are well stocked with fish.
How do we get them out?
Well, they're...
And now we got dinner. Is that a good catch?
That's a good catch. He said that his son was over here just the other day and got 159 out of the trap.
Out of one trap?
Out of one trap.
As Jamu resets the trap, it's clear this form of fishing points to a very stable and fixed type of lifestyle. These ponds have been carefully constructed, so it's not likely that the Kwikuru would abandon them. In fact, they've been using these ancestral fishing grounds for hundreds of years. But fish are just one part of the Kwikuru diet.
They grow a variety of different varieties of manioc. There's some pineapple.
Later, Mike and I visit agricultural fields.
Just so happens that manioc grows great in these soils.
How many varieties do they have?
They have over 40 varieties.
Again, Mike sees indications of a settled and stable society.
This land has been used for many generations. In fact, they've been here for hundreds, even over 1,000 years.
So just as we saw with fishing, the way they grow crops here also suggests a very sophisticated civilization.
Well, yeah, the wide variety of plants that they use, the multi-cropping that they have here, shows that they have a variety of ways to use fields at one moment in time. It looks like a scrub forest, huh?
Yeah, it's very foresty. Right.
To you and me, it may look like a scrub forest, but it's not.
Well, actually, it's an old manioc garden.
This is?
Yeah.
How do you know this is a garden, or was a garden?
Well, these piquet trees. This is what we saw.
Suddenly, I realized that this isn't just a stretch of forest. It's an orchard, a piquet orchard, a fruit sort of like a guava.
And it's a big...
So this plot of land has been thoroughly maximized.
It's a balance. It's a sustainable form of development, but it's not a natural balance. It's an artificial balance. They've created it.
Today, the village of Kwikuru is just that, a village. But could there once have been a city here, of the sort that Fawcett dreamed of finding? Could the Kwikuru themselves have once lived in such a city? Fawcett knew little about the Kwikuru people or their culture, but from his research he was convinced that their tribal territory was home to the abandoned stone city of Z. So it was in 1925 that Colonel Fawcett made the fateful decision to head into Kwikuru territory. He traveled with his son Jack and Jack's friend Raleigh Rimmel. After 8 days of grueling travel, Fawcett stopped at what he called Dead Horse Camp. After this, they'd be in unmapped territory.
Our route will be from Dead Horse Camp, roughly northeast to the Xingu. Beyond the Xingu, we shall take to the forest to a point midway between that river and the Araguaia.
It was here in the uncharted and unexplored territory of the Kwikuru that Fawcett was convinced lay the ruins of the lost city of Z. Fawcett snapped a picture of Jack and Raleigh and wrote a dispatch to the Los Angeles Times.
We shall be among the Indians with all the adventures which that implies. It is a difficult country to enter and to penetrate. I shall continue to prepare dispatches from time to time in hopes of being able to get them out eventually through some friendly tribe of Indians. But I doubt if this will be possible.
But the two guides refused to go any farther. They returned to civilization with Fawcett's dispatch and the photo. Then Colonel Fawcett set out with Jack and Raleigh Rimmel into the wilderness, traveling ever deeper into Kwikuru territory. They were never heard from again. As I spend time with the Kwikuru, I hope to learn more about Fawcett's fate. But first, I need to establish a sense of trust. Mike and I are invited into the Kwakutu, the men's house in the center of the plaza.
Oh, wow.
Women are not allowed here. The men are preparing for a special ceremony.
What some of these symbols mean?
This is an anaconda design.
Okay.
He's painting this fella in front of him is a land tortoise.
Celebrating the fish spirit, this ritual is meant to ensure a plentiful supply of a crucial part of the Kwikuru diet. It's also a welcome form of recreation.
Having fun?
Está perguntando se tá.
Wearing his jaguar skin hat, the executive privilege of a chief, a fukaka presides over the event. The Kwikuru challenge many of the stereotypes of the Amazon. Instead of small-scale societies, these people live in large, permanent villages. This one village has stood in the same place for more than 30 years. It begs the question, could the Kwikuru have once lived in an even more sophisticated setting sometime in the ancient past? The kind of stone city Percy Fawcett believed he'd find. I've been following in the footsteps of Colonel Percy Fawcett and his search for the lost city of Z. My journey has taken me deep into the jungle and the territory of the Kwikuru. It was here that Fawcett had hoped to find his lost city. And it was also here that he mysteriously disappeared. Now archaeologist Mike Heckenberger wants to show me something that may shed light on Fawcett's quest. We head out to a place considered sacred by the Kwikuru. It's called Nokugul, the place of the jaguar.
And we're now coming into the ancient village, the ancient community.
Right here.
Right here.
How do we know that?
See that little rise we just came over?
Yeah, this little depression here?
Right. If I come back down in here,
Yeah.
you can see that rise
Yep.
is the beginning of the archaeological site. This is the outer limit of the...
So you're outside.
I'm outside.
And I'm inside.
And you're inside. You're an insider.
Come on in.
Thank you.
Let's go check it out.
Working with a fukaka, Mike has found that this sacred place is also the site of an ancient settlement.
And we're getting closer to the center of the village.
We're getting closer to the center of the village.
Is that why I'm seeing more pottery as we get closer?
Once again, there's an abundance of potsherds.
Keep on going.
Keep going. We're actually walking parallel.
Although it feels like we're walking through the jungle, we're now inside the limits of the old settlement. This place must have been huge. We walk across an open area in the forest.
Your step, pretty heavily vegetated here.
More snakes?
No more snakes.
Okay.
Can't have snakes in the plaza.
Where there is now undergrowth, there once was a perfectly circular plaza.
This was the Central Plaza.
This is where it all happened. This is where the chiefs did their business. This is where people came out and did their dances, just like we saw in the contemporary village.
But Mike's most important discovery, made in the mid-90s, is not an old plaza in the jungle.
We're actually in the trough or the base of one of these ditches now. Chief's up here. Let's say hello to him.
Hi, Chief. See you again.
Bonji.
We meet a fukaka at the location.
All right. It's a trench.
So
At
yeah,
first glance, it's hard to understand the site's importance.
it's probably easier if I just get down and show you. So I'm just
Okay.
going to jump down in there.
Gotcha. All right. So what are we looking at here?
This is the excavated ditch where they would have had the palisade wall.
A palisade is a wooden defense wall, like the ones around cavalry forts in the American West. Here, Mike has found concrete evidence that a palisade wall surrounded the ancient town of Nakugul.
Well, if you look here, this red, that's the natural soil color.
Okay.
And you can see there's a transition. It's very clear here. Dark soil with little pieces of charcoal in it, red soil here. That's the boundary. They dug the trench right here into the natural soil and then infilled. And right in the middle of these two walls is where the trunks are.
What was the length, the perimeter of this wall?
This particular wall was about 1.5 kilometers long, or just over 1 mile long.
Wow. So they're moving a tremendous amount of dirt. This represents a huge work project.
It speaks to the amount of labor, and even more than the gardens and the houses that we talked about, this shows these people meant to stay. They weren't going anywhere. This is a permanent construction. This is a long-term settlement. They lived here for centuries. So this is the principal Kwikudu Road leading west. It's one of the principal entryways into the village.
500 years ago, Nakugul didn't just have elaborate wooden fortifications. It also had extensive roads. Nakugul was a complex of 5,000 people, connected to similar towns by highways. This landing strip we're walking along was once a road.
Where do these roads go to? Is there a specific place?
Yeah, they lead to another community. And this is an interesting thing. Not only were communities much larger in the past, in prehistoric times, but there was many more of them. And they were all linked up in this very complicated network of roads. Roads like this one that were very wide and well kept and straight as an arrow. But there was multiple.
Mike has studied satellite photographs of the region and used global positioning to follow the remains of ancient highways. Here, the pattern of the roads is clearly visible, emerging from the central plaza of the community in the form of a cross. Beyond this community is a whole cluster of towns connected by highways like this one, forming an ancient urban landscape. It's a very different metropolis from the one that Fawcett had in mind. His lost city of Z came complete with big public buildings made of stone. Mike's version is something completely different.
But how does this reality relate to the idea of lost cities in the jungle? When I think city, I think skyscrapers and sidewalks. And you're saying this is a city too.
You have to open yourself up to a different idea of the city. This is not your classic European city center that trickles out into the countryside. This is a different form of urbanism. Kind of like LA in a way. There's no concrete single center. It's a bunch of units spread out across the landscape, tied together, integrated through a very complex system of communications. But you have to remember that in pre-Columbian times, some of these communities were 10 or 15 times as large. There was 8 to 10 times as many of them, connected by very sophisticated, complicated road systems. City comes from our experience in Europe of a city center. This does not have a city center. This is spread across the landscape. It's built out rather than built up.
With between 2,500 and 5,000 people per complex, and 12 interconnected complexes. 500 years ago, this was a metropolis of as many as 60,000 people. It was comparable to London and Madrid of feudal Europe. A city. Hidden in the jungle, Z may very well have been only a few miles from Percy Fawcett's campsite. And he never knew it was there.
Percy Fawcett was looking for European cities in the Amazon. He was looking for stone structures, pyramids, and this is a form of urbanism or a form of complex settlement that is built out rather than built up. It doesn't have centers.
But a big mystery remains. What happened to Percy Fawcett? He was certainly not forgotten, especially by the Kwikuru. They call him the Colonel.
My original journey here began looking at European explorers, and most recently, Colonel Percy Fawcett. What light can the Kwikuru shed on Colonel Fawcett?
Tem história. Quando eu não, ainda bem sem nascer, é nosso. Meu pai, acho que meu pai já nasceu, apareceu, coronel.
Do you know, does anyone in this region, as locals, do you know what happened to him?
O índio daqui ou índio de outro lugar?
Outro lugar.
Yeah. He said it could be that he was killed by Indians, not from here, but from elsewhere, where he went, which was to the east. But they don't know because it wasn't them.
But there were plenty of other stories. One explorer claimed that Fawcett had become a chief and married a local woman, never wanting to return to civilization. Another reported that he had been held captive. One explorer even claimed to have seen Fawcett's shrunken head. In the end, the only clue to Fawcett's whereabouts was his beloved altimeter that showed up in Cuiabá in 1933 and was returned to the Royal Geographic Society. Whatever happened to Percy Fawcett, he blazed the way. His belief in lost cities, like Oriana's reports before him, are now proving to be true, but in a way that he probably never imagined. There is a complex, stratified society right here in Kwikuru that in the past was even more sophisticated. But Fawcett, looking for cities of stone, would never have recognized the evidence, even if it were right in front of him.
This adventure began on a quest for lost cities in the Amazon. Did they really exist? Based on what I've learned, I think so, but we have to reshape our understanding of what it means to be a city.
The lost cities of the Amazon may not be what we, like Percy Fawcett, have been conditioned to expect. But they have all the characteristics of cities everywhere. Permanence, large populations, a generous food supply, and a political elite. More importantly, these new discoveries in the jungle may be the beginning of a significant change in our understanding of the Amazonian past.